everyone. This is your girl TBD, and thanks again for tuning in to Texas Black Diamond Entertainment. And I just wanted to give y'all an update on Fair Wayne Bryant. I did a video about him being incarcerated for a long time, let's say since the 90s, for attempting to steal some clippers. And so they gave him a life sentence. And this is one of the things that that I have been, trying to speak on with changing the law, changing, just when we say reform, it's not taking away money from officers and things like that. When I think of reform, I'm thinking of going in and taking out all the bad and adding good into the system. With this system, Bryant was, like, I guess you can say of 3 times the crime. You are locked in jail for life, and these were petty crimes. And I think he did like, it was armed robbery back in the 60s, and he begins to start having drug problems and things like that. And I think it was great that his attorney brought this up. This is more like a slave mentality. And like I said, I was speaking, I'm working on things behind the scenes. And, I spoke on the system. That's just like with child support. The majority of the men that's locked up for child support are African American men, jobless, and don't have the skills to get the type of job to be able to maintain their living and their kids' living. So I'm like, we need to change these laws for the better for our people of color and our minorities. So Brian was on drugs. So what they did was lock him up. They denied him for parole. So, of course, they appealed. And, thank goodness that, he was granted. He walked out of there. I'll let you hear the article, and then I'm going to come back with some more about the changes of our laws.
Was sentenced in 1997 under the state's habitual offender law. On Thursday, a parole committee voted for his release. By Minavon Burke and the Associated Press. A black man in Louisiana serving life in prison for stealing hedge clippers more than 2 decades ago was granted parole, months after the state's Supreme Court declined to review his sentence. The Board of Pardons and Committee on Parole voted Thursday to release Fair Wayne Bryant, 63, records show. He walked out of prison later that day after serving more than 20 years at the state penitentiary in Angola, his attorney said. Bryant will enter into a program in Baton Rouge that helps prisoners adjust to life after they are released. Eventually, he will be allowed to live with his brother in Shreveport. Under the conditions of his parole, Bryant will have a curfew, must attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and complete community service. The Louisiana American Civil Liberties Union called the board's decision to grant parole a long overdue victory. Bryant was 38 when he was arrested in January 1997 for taking a pair of clippers from a carport storeroom at a home in Shreveport. The homeowner was alerted to the theft and chased Bryant off. That same year, a jury convicted him of attempted simple burglary of an inhabited dwelling, and Bryant, who had previous convictions, was sentenced to life in prison because he was considered a habitual offender under state law. Bryant in previous appeals argued that his sentence was unconstitutionally harsh. But in July, the state's Supreme Court declined to review his sentence. A court spokesperson told NBC News in August that 5 of the court's 7 justices, all white men, denied his request without giving an explanation. One justice, Scott Crichton, recused himself from the case while Chief Justice Burnett Johnson wrote in a dissent that his sentence was excessive. This man's life sentence for a failed attempt to steal a set of hedge clippers is grossly out of proportion to the crime and serves no legitimate penal purpose, Johnson wrote, comparing it to the post-Reconstruction era laws that mandated harsh penalties for petty theft associated with poverty. She said those laws were largely designed to re-enslave African Americans, and undoubtedly contributed to the expansion of the black prison population that began in the 1870s. And this case demonstrates their modern manifestation. Harsh habitual offender laws that permit a life sentence for a black man convicted of property crimes, Johnson wrote. Bryant had several past convictions, including the possession of stolen things, simple burglary and attempted forgery. His only violent conviction, the Chief Justice noted in her dissent, was for armed robbery in 1979. Neither the severity of Bryant's sentence nor its racial implications were addressed during Thursday's parole panel. The board members, 2 white and 1 black, noted that Bryant had been arrested more than 20 times and had 11 prior convictions. They also said that during his imprisonment he attended drug and anger management programs and had not had any recent disciplinary problems. Bryant told the panel that he had a drug problem but said during his time in prison he's been able to recognize that problem and to be in constant communication with the Lord to help me with that problem. His attorney, Robert Lancaster, said he hopes his client's case shows that habitual offender laws need to change. Because of his prior history of petty crimes to fuel a drug addiction, Mr. Bryant was sentenced to a life in prison rather than given the help he needed to recover from his drug addiction, Lancaster said in a statement. Finally, after 24 years in prison, he has been given a second chance.
I'm so happy for Bryant, and I wish him well, and I pray that everything works out. So this is what I was looking at, and so I'm glad he has someone to go to, after, so he's going to go to a halfway house, and then he's going to go to Shreveport to live with his brother. So hopefully his brother will guide him in the right direction, because that's a long time, being out of society. Things has changed. So we know Joe Biden, he voted for the 3 times the crime, lockup. And so hopefully if he's elected, that we remind them that they're not going to take our votes for granted, and we hired them to go in there and do a job, and we're going to put some fire up on the foots of every person that we hired to work in the House of America. And so once again, like I was talking about the child support, so I called and asked some questions, and my question was, okay, well, y'all say y'all lock these men up for not paying their child support obligations. So with these obligations here, these men are to pay child support to the parent that has the child, custody of the child. So when they don't pay child support, or if they get so far behind, they're locked up. They take their license and things like that. So, okay, if you lock them up and you take their license, so they can't drive to go look for work if they're out of work. They can't drive to work. So how does that work? So I asked the question. So, okay, when you lock them up, right, they have to bail out, right? So where did bail money go to? Do it go to the child, or do it go to the prison system? When they up there, when they in jail and they working and they making these little 20 cents to $1 or whatever they're making, does it actually go to the absent parent? That's the question. So yeah, we gotta change some laws here. When somebody, if they addicted to drugs, we're gonna lock them up, or we're gonna put them in somewhere where they can get some treatment. And all this money that these private owned prisons, making billions, how much are they giving back to the community? Those are the questions we have to ask. Thank you for tuning in to Texas Black Diamond. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stage, you know they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise. Got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front.